All right, guys, going to continue on with Islam. If I sound a little haggard, I've spent the past about hour recording lectures on World War II, and I'm too lazy to go get a glass of water. Also, um, ignore the color red on certain things. When I designed this lecture and like this lesson and all that, I had the idea of putting things in red for those that are on the SOL and the things that were in black weren't going to be on the SOL, but since there are no SOLs, you just need to learn about all of them. So, after the death of Muhammad and the rise of Abu Bakr and just the rise of the Caliphate in Arabia, they spread out like wildfire. They just conquer a whole bunch of places. Remembering back to last lecture where raiding parties turned into just standard conquests, and the Arabs are able to easily overcome the rulers and the empires of the Sassanids and the Byzantines in North Africa and along the Mediterranean coast in the Levant. They captured Jerusalem and Damascus. Jerusalem is highly important because it's pretty much the heartland of two religions, and it also holds very great significance to the religion of Islam because Muslims believe that in one night of prayer, actually, that Muhammad rode through the heavens to Jerusalem to pray, and that's where they build the Dome of the Rock. Stumbling over words over here. And so it's important. But they have the spiritual center of pretty much the religions of Western Europe and North Africa and the Middle East. But they also have one of the richest cities in that area, which is Damascus in Syria. They also conquer Egypt. They wrestle away North Africa from the Byzantines and the tribes holding there, and they actually make headway into Spain. And during this time, the capital of the empire, the Caliphate, moves from Mecca to Baghdad, which is located in Mesopotamia between the two rivers. Can anyone tell me the name of the two rivers? Very good. It's the Tigris and the Euphrates. They moved the capital for several reasons, but the main one is Mecca's not in a very good administrative position because it's literally just in the middle of a bunch of sand on the fringes of the empire, and Baghdad is in a very central location. It's very fertile with the ground and the crops. It's also like an epicenter of trade. And what you need to realize pretty much is in the short time between the religion's founding and about 800, it's made a permanent foothold within the region, which is unprecedented for really any religion, and even more remarkably for really any empire. Remember that Judaism never really became a popular religion. And with Christianity, between the crucifixion of Christ in roughly 32 AD up until about the late 200s, early 300s, Christianity is either outright banned or unpopular within the Roman Empire. Within 80 years, Islam has a foothold in the region. Also, during this time, religious relations really aren't that bad. And also, if you're gonna laugh at me, you try saying religious relations 3 times fast. It's really hard. I'm trying my best, but Islamic, Christian, and Judeo relations are relatively good. The Muslims don't force the Christians or the Jews to actually convert. The Jews actually find solace and a homeland within Muslim empires now and even later, because as Christian kingdoms in the early Middle Ages, so the early 1000s and the 1100s and 1200s, are expelled from Europe in record numbers, they find a home within North Africa and the Middle East, because all the Muslims require Christians and Jews to do is just pay a little bit of extra money. You can have a little Christianity, you can have a little bit of Judaism. Just gotta pay a little extra money. And those are just some soldiers. With it being the Middle East and North Africa, it's very hot, and so the Arabs fight with light infantry, and they're also expert horsemen. They fight the same way as the Persians, except they actually have technology that's on par or even better than the Europeans. But it doesn't really help them that much in Europe because light infantry tactics aren't that great in France and Italy. So what you need to know about is the Battle of Tours. And so the Muslims are gaining a foothold on Spain. There are still Christians in Spain, but the Moors, or the Spanish Muslims, conquer everything except for the northern parts of Spain. Later on, by the 900s and 1000s, the Spanish make a foothold, but they still don't have full control of the Iberian Peninsula. But I was trying to think of the mountains, but I forgot the name of the mountains. Because I'm an idiot. Everyone point and laugh at me. Do it, you coward. But the Umayyad Caliphate tries to extend into France. They want to extend their power. They want to get more money. They want to spread the religion, various factors. But the Frankish kings don't want that. And so what happens is the Frankish king at the time, who was a fellow by the name of Charles Martel, or he also goes by the nickname the Hammer. So it's Charles the Hammer Martel. And people will call him Charles the Hammer for one of two reasons. One of which is he wielded power like a hammer. He struck down hard on his enemies. Or he literally just had a hammer. But the Frankish forces and the Moorish forces meet in the middle of France. They fight a battle. And the Frankish heavy infantry and heavy cavalry, they aren't quite knights yet, but they're the precursors to knights. It's just landed nobility and rich folk that can afford the armor, and more importantly, the horses, because horses are very expensive. Also, when people have cavalry and they use it in war, they don't just own a single horse. They own several horses. So you probably would have a horse to ride just while you're on the march, and then you would have a battle horse. You probably actually have two battle horses, because horses are really big targets. But at the Battle of Tours, the Moors are no more. The Frankish king, Charles Martel, beats back the Moors, and never again do the Muslims actually make an incursion into France. Also, I have to teach you this because the SOL says so, but the SOLs are dead, and I'm better than them. But there is this old Eurocentric myth that because of the Battle of Tours, Muslims and Islam never spread into Europe and it stopped the Muslims. The Moors didn't have the capabilities to actually annex France. The French were actually a solidified kingdom. They had a singular government. They were all banded together behind Christianity. Charles Martel was from the same Carolingian dynasty as Clovis, who you read about in the textbook. Like, more than likely, the Moors would have eventually been stopped in France and they would be able to reclaim their lands. So, don't follow this stupid old Eurocentric Judeo-Christian supremacist view of history. Don't do it. Just stop. I'm asking you. Just do it. Let me see how I'm doing on time. Alright, so I'm doing fantastic on time. Also, yes, I listened to Tyler, the creator. Deal with it. Wait, am I recording? How do I open a PDF? So things are just going slow for the Muslims. There's no one really to really challenge their claims up until the 11th century and the 12th century AD. So what's happening in Europe during this time, which we'll get to in more detail in the following units, is the Christian church gains more power over the monarchs of Europe, and because of this, they want to expand and just improve their holding in the world. So what's happening is the Byzantine Empire is doing horrible. Remember how, like, after, like, before Caesar happened, like, the Roman Empire's, like, the Roman Republic's government, like, went to doo-doo, and everyone was fighting each other, and no one liked each other? Well, the Byzantines are doing the same exact thing during this time. The Byzantines are losing a lot of land in Anatolia and Turkey to not only the Arabs, but with the invasion of the Seljuk Turks, which are horse nomads from Central Asia. Them being horse nomads, they are people that ride bows and shoot horses. The Byzantines are losing a lot of land, and the Byzantine emperor pleads to the Roman Catholic Pope Pope Urban II that he requires men to liberate his land, and maybe, just maybe, he'll go back to being Roman Catholic. Pope Urban II takes this as, what if I send a bunch of random dudes to the Middle East and we can conquer the Holy Land? So for the next 4 centuries, the Muslims in this area, excuse me, have to deal with random crusades of heavily armored Christians coming to their lands and conquering it. There are several crusades, some major, some minor. But in the first crusade, the Muslims lose control of Syria, and they lose control of Antioch, and they lose control of, most importantly, Jerusalem. So they have to deal with this. Later on, under the Mamluk uh, dynasty in Egypt, the Mamluk Sultan by the name of Solomon. Ignore that, Saladin. I don't know why I'm thinking of the Old Testament king. Saladin. His name is Saladin. I'm an idiot. I need to stop doing this. Saladin's able to actually conquer Jerusalem back. There are more crusades, but after the first, they really don't do much. Also, later on, the Turks take control of Baghdad, and Egypt and the Turks are doing their own thing. They're kind of friends. They're rivals, though. They don't really go to war with each other. The Mongols happen. The Mongols are a group of nomads from Mongolia. Surprise, surprise. And they conquer Mongolia. They conquer China. And they do a lot of this under and before all this, you have a fellow by the name of Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan is the first man to unify all of the various tribes of Mongolia. He solidifies his empire, and then when he dies, his sons each get a part of the empire, and then those sons do their own thing, and then when they die, their sons do their own thing. Later on, that's how you get separate. That's how you get like the Yuan dynasty in China, who were ruled by the same family pretty much as the Golden Horde. Yes, Horde, Horde, in Russia. But the Mongols make their way to Baghdad. And the Mongols are very brutal, vicious people. They're expert warriors, and they overrun a lot of people. But what they like to do is they go up to your city and say, look, we're going to conquer you, and we're going to do it, but we don't want to have to murder everyone. So they go up to Baghdad, and they go to the emir being like the king of Baghdad, pretty much. And it's just like, look, buddy, we like you, we don't want to hurt you, but you need to surrender. And he says, no, I'm giving the Chromebook the finger. He gives them the finger. They conquer the city. They roll him up into a carpet. They throw him off the ramparts of the city, and then their entire army tramples him. And they completely, pretty much destroy Baghdad. They don't burn to the ground. They don't do it like Carthage, but they enslave a lot of people. A lot of the city is burnt. Most importantly, there is a library in Baghdad, which is the Baghdad House of Wisdom, because it's a house of wisdom in Baghdad. Historians don't name things that great, pretty much, except for the Black Death. And even with the Black Death, it turned your skin like brown and black, and then you died. So that's not that good of a name. But an Islamic Golden Age is killed by the Mongols, and they keep on Mongoling. Let's see how I'm doing on time again. All right, guys. I only have a minute before I have to wrap this up. So, important things to note for this unit. The Muslims are able to expand quickly. They fight a battle in France where they lose. And you shouldn't, think that's the only reason why Europe's not